Hello. Today we're going to be talking about peace, specifically this idea of peace that passes all understanding. Let's dive right in. So that concept, peace that passes understanding, is kind of profound, really, because if you think about it, like, peace that passes understanding would, in essence, validate this idea that we can feel peace even when it doesn't make sense, even when we see circumstances and challenges that we feel we should be freaking out about or that someone else should be freaking out about. But instead, how can we have peace amidst the chaos, peace amidst the challenge or the trial or the suffering? So that's what we're going to talk about today. There's really three essential practices that I want to highlight when it comes to curating peace from a mental health standpoint that is also in alignment with spirituality. So the first one is this practice of mindfulness. There has been an extensive amount of research come out around mindfulness over the past 5-10 years. And what that research is showing is just the process of becoming more aware of what's happening in our mental narrative and in our thought patterns, and being more aware of what we're putting our focus on can provide a lot of nourishment and a lot of peace. This practice has also been defined as meditation, and the practice of prayer would also be in alignment with this type of mental mindfulness. There's really a handful of ways that this might show up, yet the underlying intention, is to be present in the moment and focus on what's happening right here and right now. We can start by identifying, one thing that we notice with each of our senses to pull us into the present moment. So taking a moment to note with your eyes closed, to notice what you hear, what do you smell, what do you feel? If your eyes are open, what do you see? Is there anything that you taste? This tool can help bring you into the present moment and be very grounding emotionally. So that's a practice. And eventually you can even strip down your focus to your very breath. And that's the ultimate practice of meditation, is that your breath becomes the primary focal point of your focus. And even though thoughts come up in the mind, you kind of let them just come and go. There's no real attachment to them. And so you can imagine yourself cloud watching. So if you were laying back and watching clouds, you're staying stationary and the clouds are just kind of moving by you. And that's a tool when you're practicing meditation. Meditation and mindfulness is not about completely extinguishing thought. It's just about being more intentional and conscious of what you're putting your thoughts on and your focus on. It takes time and practice. It does get easier with practice, but that is an underlying tool. And sometimes you can use, focusing on the five senses. You can also use a mantra prayer or a mantra meditation. And so that's where you're saying, the same line or verse over and over again. Now, I want to add just a little side note on to the idea of mindfulness and prayer and meditation. I'm grouping those three things under the same umbrella right now. But I could get into a half-hour conversation about each one of those. So just for right now, we're going to put them under the umbrella of mindfulness. Now, one little caveat I want you to consider is that there has been some research done comparing secular prayer and meditation and spiritual meditation. Now, spirituality is, in psychology journals, is just defined as making sense or bringing awareness to a force or being that is immaterial. The research is showing that just this practice alone of engaging in spirituality is creating a deeper sense of wholeness and connection within people who practice spirituality or attempt to discover spirituality in their journey of life. So really, really amazing stuff that they're seeing with that practice of spirituality. But this comparison of secular meditation and spiritual meditation is very interesting. They're finding that spiritual meditation is actually more helpful in relieving anxiety and depression and creating senses of overall peace and well-being. So what would be the difference? An example is if you were to focus on the statement, I am strong and worthy. I am strong and worthy. That is considered secular meditation. You're focusing on yourself. Now, if you were to say something like, I am worthy to rely on God's strength, or I can get through this by relying on God's strength. Now you're shifting the primary focus to that of this being or force that is immaterial. And you can call it God, you could call it creator, you could call it divine. Some people may call it the universe, but then it begs the question, well, who made the universe, right? There's something beyond the universe, right? We're trying to look for something immaterial. Universe is arguably material. So coming up with definitions that embody that idea of an immaterial force or being, you can label it what you will. The Bible calls it God. In essence, the message is it's this creator of everything that is. So if you're shifting the focus to that force or being, that's when we move into spiritual meditation. And because the answer or the outcome or the strength is not reliant on ourselves, it creates a deeper sense of relief when we meditate in that way. And so that's a whole practice, and maybe you could jot down some ideas that come up in your mind to curate some of these mantras or statements that are focused on spirituality rather than self-focus. But you can adjust a lot of secular meditation mantras, and people call them affirmations, self-affirmations. But you can take those affirmations and put a God-focused twist on them, and they may be a little bit more effective for you. That's at least what the psychology research is showing. I encourage you to practice it on your own and experiment on your own. So how to curate peace that passes understanding. Number one, mindfulness. We'll put under that umbrella meditation and prayer. The second thing that can curate some peace is taking time to just acknowledge the emotional responses that we have and the belief patterns that are coming up with them. So our relationship with emotions is very fascinating. Just because we have certain emotional impulses, it does not mean that that emotion is truth. Often there are people who are out there that are completely delusional, having emotional responses to things, and that is their reality, right? That our reality is curated by the thoughts we tell ourselves and the emotions we feel. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily grounded in truth all the time. Sometimes they are caused by trauma or challenging circumstances. And I have another video called Unwoven that dives a little bit more into our relationship with emotions, if that's a topic you're interested in. But the bottom line is, if you can take some time to just acknowledge your emotions that are coming up and the belief patterns that you are having alongside them, observing those from an observer and a third person standpoint, that can itself cause some relief in our emotional overwhelm or emotional tension. Now, the trick is not to become one with the emotions, right, where they're completely overwhelming us, but instead to try and observe them as a third person and observe them as separate from us, but to just become curious about those emotional patterns and responses. Super nourishing, super healing. There's a therapy modality called internal family systems that is really based off of this concept. And it's my personal therapy style that I take for myself. Like when I talk to my therapist every week, my counselor, that's the style of therapy that we work within. That's the modality. And it's so incredible because my natural tendency is to be a fixer and to experience peace and healing just by listening and tuning in and becoming curious about my emotions is just like mind-blowing for me personally. With that said, you got to find the therapy modality that works best for you at this time in your life and with whatever you're experiencing, and that might change, right? But therapy styles are kind of like different tools in a toolbox. You may use them for different circumstances and different experiences, and some are more effective at things than others, right? So you got to know your journey to determine what tool is best for you. But bottom line is becoming emotionally aware through that practice can be very soothing and bring a lot of peace that passes understanding. So those are two major contributions to peace that passes understanding. Now the third one is a little bit more grounded in our physical health. And so there's no denying that wellness in general is a holistic concept integrating body, mind, and soul. There are 3 dimensions, right? We want to have physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. Those are all part of this holistic system of what we need as humans to really live a peaceful, purpose-driven life. And there's no denying that our physical body impacts us. There's just no getting around that. So peace that passes understanding, what's that third thing? Take a look at your physical health. Take a look at what you physically are doing. So there's variables to this. There's, yes, eating intentionally, right? Really trying to nourish your body, not just eating off of taste or flavor or entertainment, but really looking at nourishment for your body. You need certain vitamins and minerals to effectively think and process emotions. So that's a huge component. And there's also tools and tricks you can integrate, like taking multivitamins can help quite a bit. There's a lot of research coming out about cold exposure therapy, and people know a lot of people know that I'm a huge proponent of cold plunges just because of what it can do for your physical body and how much that is affecting our mind, our resilience, and our nervous system, all of that combined, which is going to help curate some peace that passes understanding for you. Another thing within the sense of like physicality, being intentional with who you hang out with or who you subject yourself to. I'm sure you maybe have heard of the concept, you are the top 5 people that you hang out with and surround yourself with. And this includes YouTube. This includes Facebook. So if you're engaging and putting your focus on people that are not curating a sense of identity and purpose that you want to experience or that you want to align with, then it's maybe time to change that influence, that social influence that's happening around you. So that's all worth thinking about and worth contemplating when it comes to peace. And I bring that up just because you'll notice if you're around certain people, it's gonna cause some challenges to your peace. I'm not saying to avoid everything or everyone that brings a challenge to you. I'm just saying it's worth intentionally curating the space around you when you can control it. There are people we inevitably have to confront. There are family members, people at work, people we have to coordinate with to get our lawn mowed or to go to the bank or, to go to the grocery store, right? There's people that we have to interface with that we may not choose to interface with if we had much of a choice. But there is an abundant amount of time that we do have, that we can be more intentional with what influences we allow to impress on us. And I think that that's a really big deal when it comes to curating peace, a sense of peace within us. So let me think if there's anything else. Mindfulness, the physical health, and you can also, this is just kind of like a side tool, you could also start setting your focus on stuff that brings you hope, a sense of hope and a sense of support. And this is where spirituality can be really huge, is that you're broadening your perspective to rely on or be receptive to something that's greater than you and something that's bigger than you. And so this is more of a spiritual wellness technique for peace and peace that passes understanding, is that even though something might be challenging right now, how can we instill some sense of hope for the experience we do want, or for peace, for contentment? These are great goals. No matter what happens around you, what if you could feel peace? What if your peace wasn't dictated on your surrounding environment? What if that peace was instead reliant on tools and an internal atmosphere that you can curate in any moment? When we initially are trying to curate peace in our life, it becomes this mental practice, and it can be very helpful to influence ourselves with our environment. So, for example, if we're trying to calm down after being dysregulated, it's good to leave that situation, right? It's good to go to another room, play some peaceful music, right? Tell yourself a mantra, change your environment, go for a walk, get the physical activity in to engage your body and pull yourself out of your limbic system. When we get stressed, our frontal lobe, that's responsible for conscious decision making, starts to shut down and limit its function. When we're in pain, our frontal lobe will completely shut down. And emotional pain is very similar to physical pain in the brain's reception of it. So it's really important to be aware of. If you experience emotional or physical pain, just noticing or just being mindful that will interrupt your decision making. So habits become helpful. Putting yourself in a different environment becomes helpful. Going for a walk becomes helpful. Changing your physical environment is a really, really huge deal. Eventually, it would be a great goal to get to a point where you don't have to physically change where you are to feel that sense of peace, right? That would be the ultimate goal. And that takes time and practice, but it is possible. And that is really when we can get into a state of ultimate peace and peace that passes understanding. It does not matter what our physical environment is, but we still feel that sense of contentment, hope, and mental peace and ease through the struggle and through the challenge. I hope that you found these tips helpful. Let me know which one stood out to you most, or if there's any others that you use that I didn't mention that seem to be effective for you. I'd love to hear about it, and I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I want to hear it. I'm Danielle, spiritual wellness coach. I hope you have a great rest of your day.